Alright, new Nintendo Direct. I hope some new characters for Smash get announced. So, alright, let's watch. What the? Who wanted these? I cannot believe that they had the nerve to put these characters in the game. Banjo? Hero? How could they add such pointless characters? Smash is a celebration of gaming, and I don't care about either of them. How could Sakurai not cater the entire Fighter Pass specifically to me and my taste in video games instead of considering the entire population of the world and their interest in gaming? This is an outrage, and I will be returning my Fighter Pass to GameStop for a full refund. Ever since Hero and Banjo-Kazooie were revealed, there has been a ton of buzz online. But if you've even glanced at Twitter for a single second, you know that not all of it is positive. In fact, quite a few people have voiced negative complaints about both of these characters. Now, admittedly, the comments about Banjo-Kazooie aren't so much negative as they are just simple confusion on their inclusion. But Hero has received some absolute vitriol online. I literally said on Twitter that people are taking Smash characters too seriously and got told that I was a Japan-defending weeb. So I want to talk about why both of these characters are good additions to the series, whether or not you're excited about them specifically, and also why their announcement in the same Direct was incredibly smart on Nintendo's part. So first, let's start with Banjo-Kazooie. As a brief rundown on the history of Banjo, Rare was a second-party developer back for the Super Nintendo and then later for the Nintendo 64. This basically means that they were one of the developers Nintendo went to first when they had a particular game in mind. They made the Donkey Kong Country series, Donkey Kong 64, Killer Instinct, GoldenEye 007, and of course, Banjo-Kazooie. Rare was basically a household name at the time. Aside from the fact that Diddy Kong and King K. Rool were both created by Rare for the Donkey Kong Country series, the design that they decided to use for Donkey Kong in that same series is still the design used to this very day. Before, he was a mess. Banjo-Kazooie itself was a huge success in North America, scoring incredibly high in many reviews and selling nearly 2 million copies in the United States alone. It didn't do too bad in Japan either, with 500,000 copies sold. It was clear that Banjo and Kazooie had definitely earned their place among the greats for the Nintendo 64. I mean, they even appeared on this box for a Nintendo 64 console alongside some of Nintendo's biggest characters. For whatever reason, this didn't extend to Nintendo wanting to actually purchase Rare outright, which was a proposal that was on the table and one that Nintendo simply didn't take up. Instead, Microsoft swooped in and picked them up, and aside from a few choice cameos, the characters Rare owned haven't really been seen on Nintendo consoles in ages. And that's why it's so special that Banjo-Kazooie are coming to Smash. People have said that it's like they're coming home, and I truly do agree with this sentiment. Not only haven't we had any Banjo-Kazooie content since Rare Replay, which was just a re-release, and Nuts and Bolts, which is a mountain of flaming garbage, but it's been even longer since the pair have been seen on Nintendo hardware. Not even counting the fact that Banjo has been requested in Smash since the beginning, being one of the few recognizable characters that could potentially have joined even on Smash 64. But I've also seen people question why Banjo-Kazooie are so popular in the first place, and this really is just its own video in itself. All I have to say is that you just have to play their games to figure it out. Gameplay-wise, they really studied the Super Mario 64 formula and absolutely improved upon it in their own special way. Outside of gameplay alone, they incorporated amazing, unique characters into a story that really just didn't take itself too seriously. With tongue-in-cheek humor, breaking the fourth wall, and even some poop jokes, the game just absolutely had an absolute charm to it that really just helps it stand out even further from the rest of the crowd. All of this was combined into a game that just absolutely did so well with the collectathon theme that was just all the rage for the boom of 3D platformers. Some have even said that without Banjo-Kazooie, the 3D platformer genre may not even be what it is today. But with Banjo-Kazooie talked about, now let's focus on the hero, a character that I actually am not too familiar with because I've never played a Dragon Quest game. And a lot of people must have been in that same camp because a ton of people have complained about Hero's inclusion. They said it's been a waste of time, a waste of a slot, other characters deserve to be in, and not this stupid character. And of course, the phrase anime sword fighter has been thrown around just so much. The problem is that a lot of people forget that anime sword fighter really wasn't the initial complaint. It started as a Fire Emblem fighter problem. People were tired of Fire Emblem fighters, and specifically Marth clones, being added to the game. And that got boiled down into anime sword fighter because Fire Emblem is an anime-style game with a lot of sword fighters. But somewhere along the way, that phrase started applying to other characters in the community and not just Fire Emblem. But when Smash 4 was coming out, both the base game and the DLC, I never heard anyone complain about Shulk or Cloud or even Robin being anime sword fighters, even though they are anime sword fighters, because they were unique and they brought cool mechanics to the table rather than just being Marth, Diet Marth, Red Marth, or Ike. But now for some reason this anime sword fighter trope is being applied to the 4 heroes from Dragon Quest, who look like they are incredibly unique fighters, and while yes they are anime swordsmen, they also have a very interesting magic system. I think that the first half of the trailer with the Luminary using only his normal moves definitely didn't help because all of the normal moves are basically just sword attacks, which is what everyone seems to hate. But the second half, they are doing nothing but their cool magic attacks, which apparently have a whole mana system and selectable moves and all sorts of cool things that we just don't know anything about. I have no idea how this system works, but based on the trailer, it does seem really intricate and absolutely the opposite of just a generic anime swordsman. It's like Shulk's Monado Arts or Robin's Magic, but amped up to 11, and I'm personally really excited to see how it works. It's definitely not just typical anime sword fighter because their fighting style definitely isn't going to work that way. And besides, if we're excluding anime sword fighters, then the pool for possible additions to Smash becomes very small. But Dragon Quest itself is just so huge for Japan too. A ton of the excuses for why heroes shouldn't be in the game is that Dragon Quest is an irrelevant game that no one likes. But honestly, that couldn't be further from the truth. Dragon Quest is the 3rd best-selling JRPG franchise in terms of sales, with only its brother Final Fantasy and the king Pokemon defeating it. So to say Dragon Quest is irrelevant just because you don't like it is just so off the mark. It has a ton of awards to its name, including best-selling RPG for the Super Famicom, fastest-selling game in Japan, and it's even popular enough that if it were to be mentioned in casual conversation, most people would recognize what you're talking about in Japan. In fact, when Dragon Quest III released, over 300 students were arrested for skipping school to wait in line to buy the game. It's an absolute phenomenon in Japan, and so it's actually kind of a shock to me that it took this long for a Dragon Quest rep to be in Smash, a Japanese-developed game. So it's kind of smart that they're including 4 different protagonists all onto one character slot in order to sort of catch up for all of the Dragon Quest games that have happened that Smash just hasn't represented at all. So the announcement of both characters in the same Direct was amazingly strategic by Nintendo. Both Banjo and Hero are very different characters. One comes from a 3D platformer that did very well in the West, and one represents an RPG series that is a household name in Japan. The overlap for people who are going to like both of these characters is probably very small, so announcing them together ideally would make both sets of players happy for the inclusion. But of course, the internet is full of whiny 12-year-olds, and this isn't the case. But I've largely seen so much support for both characters that I believe Nintendo definitely hit the mark, and more people are happy about the characters than are upset. People online talked about how American reactions to Hero were kind of subdued, but if you go and look at some of the Japanese reactions, you can see that they are just as excited for Hero as we are for Banjo. And that just kind of puts a smile on my face. Smash may have started as Nintendo All-Stars in a fighting game, but at this point in the series, it's basically a celebration of all gaming. The third-party fighters that we have in Ultimate now outnumber the actual original roster from Smash 64. So if you don't think this is just a celebration of all games, then you're just wrong. So while you might not like a specific series like Dragon Quest or Banjo-Kazooie, others do, and that's what Smash is all about. And that's what I think the Fighters Pass is all about. It's celebrating new games, it's celebrating old games, it's celebrating all games. But I'd love to know your thoughts on that sentiment and these specific 2 characters. Do you love them both? Do you hate them both? Or do you like one and dislike the other? Or are you just completely neutral? Because I know there are a couple of you out there, so you just speak up. I need to hear you guys too. Any thoughts that you want to pour out of your brain and onto the YouTube website, just leave them down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please be sure to hit the like button. If you guys are new, then please be sure to subscribe. And if you like clicking things, I guess you could ring the bell. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.